immediately playing off with these decks.
This is certainly going to impact a lot of different tournaments across the world because people are figuring out, but we're just going right in with Fiendsmith track being activated to go ahead and grab, looks like Fabled Lure and discard it.
Fabled Lure has been discarded. Mandatory effect is going to activate and summon itself back out from the graveyard, and now I think the immediate step is to link summon that card into Fiendsmith Requiem. Requiem immediately activates the effect. That's a quick effect too, and it quickly puts it into the graveyard to fetch out.
And the monster of the hour, yeah, Fiendsmith Engraver. Is that a quarter-century secret rare? Do my eyes deceive me?
I believe that is a quarter-century secret rare. I think Pakawat is known to just max out the deck, and we're seeing Wanted being activated now.
So this is where the Snake Eye portion comes in, and it's true that, you know, Fiendsmith has so many different ways to grip out great monsters and, you know, put stuff in the graveyard if they happen to make, you know, Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal. But it seems like for this duel, Pak is just going straight into Diabellstar from that Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils, so not going to be relying on that and maybe just going a more Fiendsmith-based path.
Going for the equip right away, and therefore he gets to send away the Requiem for the cost of the Diabellstar, the Black Witch, which is actually very cost-effective now because you just have to maximize every piece of resource you have without committing cards in your hand.
Well, speaking of committing cards from the hand, looks like we have Infinite and Permanence dropping down, so unfortunately that Requiem went to the graveyard for naught. The Diabellstar isn't going to get its effect, but it looks like a Link summon of some kind right now.
Go for a Link 2. Which monster are we going into? And that's going to be Sequentia, or rather Fiendsmith Sequence. Sequence now has the fusion effect. Now, the recipe for Sequence is at least one Light Fiend monster. So the fusion monsters, to kind of break it down for you, will require multiple Light Fiend monsters, whereas the Link monsters, well, one only requires one Light Fiend, but the other is, you know, two monsters, including one Light Fiend monster. So
looks like we're seeing plenty of Light Fiends. Lacrima goes ahead and brings out the Fiendsmith Engraver, and now we're going to perform an Xyz summon. And it looks like we are going to Beatrice, Lady of the Eternal, maybe not worrying about Nibiru, the Primal Being, coming down. There certainly has been a lot of Triple D Wave King Caesar variants out there where you're trying to stop the special summon. But right now, it just seems like Pak is going all in and sending the original Seeker of Sinful Spoils, excuse me, the original Sinful Spoils, Snake Eye, to the grave.
That's right. And he's going to be able to add himself one of the Snake Eye cards. One of the level 5, that's going to be Snake Eye Ash, and he's going to be able to put back the Diabellstar.
I think what's so cool...
He has to put back the Diabellstar because, don't forget, you do need to put back a card, a Snake Eye or a Diabell monster.
I think what's so cool, though, about what we're already seeing from Pakawat's play here is there's so many different routes you can go. There's not one linear path, and you have to be an experienced duelist, and thankfully Pakawat is. But yeah, here we have Snake Eye Ash, and I think we're going to have a very familiar Poplar going to the hand now.
That normal summon is like such a bait if you want to interact with it, because if you do hit it with, say, an Ash Blossom or an Imperm, well, you have tons of monsters on the field to just pivot your way straight into our Promethean Princess, right? And then you just summon it back, you just get everything anyway, and then you would have burned the Disruption. So
I think we'll still see the Princess for sure, but it's not like the typical route we have seen from a lot of the cool combos players have been posting online, where maybe they'll use Beatrice to send a Snake Eye monster to the graveyard and immediately link off to Promethean Princess to special summon it back to start the combo from there. Pak's hand was incredible, and so now we are already seeing the Snake Eyes Diabellstar there in the Spell and Trap zone.
That was placed there through the field spell, of course, Divine Temple. Now, this is a very interesting position. There's just so much that you keep on extending and extending. So nowadays, compared to the previous format where we had to disrupt them as early as possible using your Imperms, your Veilers, if you use them too early, you're going to run into the problem where there's still a lot of monsters on the field.
No, a couple of events ago, we absolutely were discussing how it was, you know, Interaction Awareness Month, right? You had to know exactly when to play those cards, and just one piece of interaction from the hand was not enough. Here, maybe it is, but only if it's extremely well timed.
Yeah, you definitely have to time your disruptions from hand now. There's no go-to anymore. You just can't rely on the two in the same position. It's not that format anymore, and we are going to continue to link off into different monsters. We are into
Selene.
The Selene now.
We'll say the creativity is off the chart. I feel like the extra deck has never felt more cramped. Those 15 slots, it's hard to pick just 15.
Is extremely tight. And the Selene into the Appaloosa.
So now, certainly safe. Obviously, you don't need to bring out the Wave King Caesar anymore because you've got an answer to Nibiru. I don't think we would have gotten this far if George had a Nibiru in his hand already. So Pac feeling really, really experienced and just ready to keep going. But it looks like Pakawat's going to link again here using the Poplar and Beatrice to make
IP
Masquerena, yeah.
So here's something that's pretty insane about the field that is being developed by Pac right now. It's just that George already used one of the imperm. One of the things that still clears the entire field is if you have imperm plus Nibiru the Primal Being. That still works because you can't get the double negation unless somehow you summoned out Fiendsmith's the fusion. I believe that is Desiree.
Desiree.
That way you can kind of interact with both cards, but it's right now not exactly the best position to be in.
It's interesting. Desiree is such a highly impactful card because it is one of the few readily accessible cards in the format that can stop those powerful traps being activated from the hand. And we don't just have to worry about infinite permanence anymore. Now we've got Dominus Purge too. So we could see an impact, but it doesn't look like that's the route he is going. Right now we're just going to go ahead and banish that Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils and go ahead and put something down on the deck to draw a card. I think we recycled the Diabell Star.
I mean, if we just do a hand count, well, George is at 4 cards right now. There's at least 4 cards on the field that is about to go into Promethean Princess. That's likely going to bring back another monster. There is so much going on. So we put the IP Masquerena into the back as a continuous spell from Flamberge's effect. And we're going to special summon back another monster. We're going to summon back our Snake Eyes Diabell Star from Promethean Princess. Now, I can't imagine Pac leaving the Promethean Princess on the field while firelocking himself.
Probably not the best look, although I would say you would never know that we were in this format and not last just based on the cards on the field. He has done a great job of using the Fiendsmith engine to get every Snake Eye card he wants on board.
And now that he's link summoned into the Nightmare Phoenix, co-linked with the Appaloosa, the Appaloosa cannot be destroyed by battle, which was typically the normal out for Appaloosa. So we're going to have to find another way to clear that card, or otherwise we have to play into it.
All right, well, here comes George with his Fiendsmith Yubel deck. Let's see if Yubel can come back from this. Looks like we're going to start with Mind Control.
Ooh, that's one way to, break that particular lock. And if you take control of the Appaloosa, that, lines it up quite nicely to kind of insulate your play a little bit from negation from monsters.
Well, we've seen powerful stealing cards before, Change of Heart, Snatch Steal, and it reminds you that, like, if you know a deck is going to be popular and you happen to be playing a popular deck too, hey, look, your opponent just brought you everything you need. I'll just take that up.
Oh, wow. Speaking of taking cards, we're going to steal a card with Snatch Steal. Who is the target? That's going to be Nightmare Phoenix. I mean, this provides George with a lot of link material.
It's really interesting. If you were cheering for George, you might have been worried that he didn't have any answers to Pakawat setting up an early board, but it looks like he did. He knew that really there wasn't much that could stop things like this. If we see a Change of Heart, my goodness.
Now, we still have the Flamberge, and I think we're in a bit of a tight spot when it comes to Pakawat's side of the field. Only thing left being that Flamberge. There are a couple set cards, and that is Grave Squirmer, the gruesome Grave Squirmer. Because there is a Fiend on the field.
There is
a Fiend on the field. That is
the
Nightmare. That is the Nightmare Phoenix.
That's fine.
That's not a Wing Beast. Let's not get confused here. That's going to be a Fiend. That's going to special summon out the Grave Squirmer.
Well, Pakawat's favorite card may be Gimmick Puppet Nightmare, but looks like he's staring down his own Nightmare, as Nightmare Phoenix really may get this going. The fact that you can special summon that gruesome Grave Squirmer there because you're controlling a Fiend is really just an odd turn of fate here. It was like it was destiny, but now we're Link summoning. Is it a Link 2 or a Link 3?
I'm going to take a guess it's going to be a Link 2. That's my wild guess. It could be, Moon of the Closed Heaven, set up your own Fiendsmith engine.
I think you might be right. He definitely seems to be pulling it out.
Yep.
And there it is, Moon of the Closed Heaven. So Snatch Steel's going to go to the graveyard.
Wow, Snatch Steel. Recently reprinted.
Oh,
it's a secret rare.
It's a quarter century also from the Battles of Legends set. Yeah, okay, well, I might be trading for that after this.
Well, I think that's like perfect timing because likely, it could become this whole new relevant card that people will play just to break apart fields.
You certainly need a way to pull things off the board, and we learned, especially in Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, people using just alternate ways to clear things off the board that are not destroying and not returning to the hand. Sometimes you do just want to take across the board that monster staring you down.
So through the summon of the Moon of the Closed Heaven, we are going to use the Divine Temple to summon out our IP Masquerena from the Spell and Trap zone, and we're going to move on into making SP Little Knight through the effect of IP Masquerena.
Certainly important to note that that was a set infinite impermanence, so...
And we're going to attempt to remove the Moon of the Closed Heaven. I mean, that's a great way to stun out. That costs 2 cards, we're clearing it out, and that's banished. At least gone for good for now. I mean, getting rid of that card is actually very impactful, because that's typically the card that bridges into Fiendsmith.
Certainly is. I mean, any 2 monsters can become a light fiend. Kind of reminds me of a lot of different formats where Link 2s have just been the centerpiece of so much creativity. But I guess Paco was aware of that, and he had a game plan, because here he's back on and bringing out a number of Snake Eye cards to his field and hand, and it isn't even his turn.
That's right. No, that's the power of the Snake Eyes, and from the Oak and the Poplar being summoned back from Flamberge, and then we get the Oak adding back an Ash into hand rather than summoning it. And then we got the Poplar adding the spell card, original simple full spoil Snake Eye.
Oh, we got the triple tactics talent. Oh, but there's the Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring to stop the drawing, and it looks like missed 2 infinite impermanence. I'm also seeing an Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, so I don't know if there's that many starters, but luckily the best Yubel starters here.
Yeah, Dark Beckoning Beast. That's going to search into opening of the Spirit Gates. I mean, that card is so good.
Oh, it's so good. I only recently just remembered that when you have the level 10 monster on the field, you can just bring back the extra copies and have additional resources. There's so much going on with Yubel.
Resource Management 101 right there. All right, so we're going to search into... That is not another copy.
It's Chaos Summoning Beast this time.
That's very different. I did not expect that.
I don't think we're doing the full thing. Now, Chaos Summoning Beast does have some cool stuff, right? It's a level 1. The Yubel deck does have a lot of level 1s in it anyway, but it certainly gives you some interesting other actions. Speaking of level 1, it's 1 for 1 time, as he discarded that Chaos Summoning Beast immediately and traded out for Samsara D. Lotus.
I mean, does this kind of telegraph that he does not have a Spirit of Yubel in hand?
I think it does just a little bit, because as a Yubel player myself, the only time you go this route is you kind of need it. And so it looks like we are tributing to go ahead and activate that effect and say hello to the spirits of Yubel.
So Pac is not interacting here. We can take a little close-up at Pac. Pac is really calm here, but he's watching all these important cards being played onto the field, placed onto the field. And now we have a set Nightmare Pain that's been set up by Spirit of the Yubel. That's going to be activated right now. I believe we're also going to attempt the effect to destroy one of the dark monsters that they control to add a Gruesome Grave Swarmer. Spirit of Yubel, that will now activate. This is the chain reaction of Yubel right here.
It really is. It is so wild that first part of Spirit of Yubel, summoning out Yubel when it's destroyed, is not a effect that can only be activated once per turn. So we might see Yubel a couple of times here, but hey, that's the whole vibe of the deck, right?
I mean, George right now has to play really hard. He doesn't have the get out of jail free card, if you will, which is the Throne. So everything here he commits is going to be a hard commitment, because there's no free additional monster coming out. There's no free searches. And the 1 key follow is also going to be missing without the field spell. I mean, that's just such a strong field spell.
It is. And it's certainly telling that even though it's Fiendsmith Yubel, he has been concentrating mostly on the Yubel side of things, and we haven't seen even a Moon of the Closed Heaven at all. It looks like that's where Nibiru is going to happen. Oh, no. And I believe that our Yubel Terra Incarnate will miss the timing, because it is unfortunately when it leaves the field, and the last thing to happen is a token and Nibiru showing up.
Yeah, that is very, very unfortunate. And so...
Oh, and the Grave Squirmer is gone too now from the Bestial Magnamut.
That is very rough. Immediately taking care of the entire field and the entire matchup here. Hold on.
Thinking this might be a Phantom of Yubel?
This is a Phantom of Yubel, so there is a first follow-up right here. It's like if George gets 2 monsters onto the field, we can still go into Moon of the Closed Heaven.
Of course. That was good.
So that's 2 disruptions from hand gone from Pac's side. Pac's down to 3 cards in hand, but that's also 2 monsters on his side of the field already set up.
It shows you how impactful Nibiru the Primal Being certainly still is. Now, a lot of Link monsters require 2 effect monsters. That might be why we're getting out a second Phantom of Yubel, but it might spark you to think about getting out Link Spider. I've been seeing that in a couple of extra deck lists, just to turn tokens into effect monsters to kind of move the game state forward.
Yeah, I mean, that is the follow-up answer to the Nibiru. Yes, sure, that token might be really big. Well, probably not in this case. This is Yubel after all. However, being able to turn it into an effect monster can help you bridge into your other lines.
Sure.
Looks like we're discarding for opening the Spirit Gates to bring back Spirit Yubel, and we discarded Imperm.
That's perfect. Now we're insulated from another disruption from hand now. Now, if you try to disrupt this particular play, you're likely going to meet into another Yubel. Now, the Phantoms of Yubel, one key restriction on those cards, you cannot use those as fusion material, even if it means, I guess, putting it back into the deck to summon another fusion monster.
Well, it'd be way too good to go Phantom of Yubel and a Phantom of Yubel and a Phantom of Yubel.
Insane infinite loop.
But it looks like, wow, okay.
Phantasme.
Now that's a blast from the past, although I think that was the Quarter Century Secret Rare from Rarity Collection 2, but yeah,
yes,
perfect on the Yama.
So that is quite the interaction. Pak just trying to keep everything on the field. I mean, for the number of cards on the field, Pak essentially tried to play 3 cards just now, and that was forced to be destroyed, and that was what kind of got rid of the effect of whatchamacallit?
The Phantasme, yeah, because if it can't count, it can't be. So good looking out there from George. Obviously a lot of practice in the Yubel corner there, and then destroying the Yama with the Unchained Soul Lord of Sharvara, and then banishing the Yama as well to get its effect. Adding, who are we going to grab?
We are going to see. Oh, ooh.
Taking just a moment to think here.
Yeah, yes, definitely. Oh, going for the Yubel.
Ah, makes sense, makes sense. Now, still not down and out. A lot of different ways that this deck could go.
I mean, all the big disruptions are gone. Nibiru's gone. The field is essentially very, very safe from getting wiped out again. From the 3 monsters that we had previously, now we're back to 4 monsters. What a great pivot into that particular disruption.
Well, Nibiru certainly made an impact, but life goes on, and now there it is, Moon of the Closed Heaven.
Here we go. Now,
buckle in for a wild ride.
For the Fiendsmith side, especially in Yubel, they likely will be playing the fusions. We're going to likely see a Desiree because it makes a lot more sense. Cool. It makes a lot more sense for this deck in particular because you have trap cards that you can activate from the Unchained side, which can open up the game state, especially if you're stuck under a Dark Ruler.
Well, it looks like we are definitely seeing Fiendsmith Engraver here, so it's finally time for the Fiend deck to play the Light Fiends. We're going to go ahead and use the quick effect there to equip.
And then we're going to use the effect of the Engraver to send away the equipped Requiem and 1 monster the opponent controls. Well, it doesn't have to be the monster the opponent controls. It can be even your own monster. You just send away a monster.
Very good looking out there. We are going to go into Fiendsmith sequence here. Looks like we are going to fusion summon, so we may see that Desiree after all. But it looks like for now it is not going to be Desiree. We're just going to Lacrima.
Now with the Lacrima here, we're going to summon Lacrima effect. It doesn't necessarily need to summon the monster. It can be added to hand from Banish or from Graveyard. Now if you haven't used the effect already, likely you're going to put it into your hand. You're going to put it back into the graveyard, and once you put that card back into the graveyard, you're going to get the Fiendsmith tracked. Likely going to be the next follow-up play.
There's been so many cool plays with the track. Obviously, we already saw Pakawat use it to add Fabled Lurie, which is a popular option. But I have been seeing, just here and there, especially with the Beatrice Lady of the Eternal, evil heroes going around.
Oh, yes. You can also put...
a Deuced Gold, the light one.
A Deuced Gold. And for some people, they're just going to put... They try to put a evil hero, Sinister Necrom into the graveyard to get the Deuced Gold onto the field. So we got ourselves a Fabled Lurie that got added to hand, sent to the grave, summoned back onto the field.
Certainly, Fabled has never looked better when you have all these Light Fiend support cards, so it's good to see that Blast from the Past coming back.
So with tracked in the graveyard, you can apparently attempt to perform a fusion summon. However, right now, we don't have Fiendsmith's Engraver, so Desiree is not exactly on the table at the moment.
Thinking about that Phantom of Yubel, we are going to hard commit to it.
Is that the 3rd one for this turn?
That's at least the third one that's been summoned this turn.
I mean, you probably need that 3rd one just for plays like this. You probably want to finish with one at the very least.
Now, destroying a Yubel is important. It is the entire point of the deck. But it looks like we're still considering our options here in the extra deck. Might be advancing the game state just a little further.
I mean, I think we can play through the disruptions now. We've eaten the Magnemut. We've also eaten the Nibiru. We've also stopped the Phantasme. That's a lot. That's so much.
So I guess the only ones we have left are we haven't seen Droll and Lockbird, which is another very popular option.
Although I
feel like
we're going to
see it.
I don't think we're going to see that one anymore at this point. No, we're going to see Muckraker.
I wonder if we're going to see the Nightmare Griffin combo here. I don't know that I saw it in the extra deck there, but it's another popular option because, again, Muckraker doesn't point any link arrows at your opponent, and it could be co-linked. That is 4 monsters, but I won't get too excited.
Well, that would get rid of
too much, I would say.
At this point, you'd get rid of your own Phantom if you want to make that play. I mean, there's still probably an overlay play right here, which I think we're seeing right now. And we're going to go into DDD Wave High King Caesar. That's 2 effect-based summon negations taken care of. Pak down to, well, essentially he's down to 2 cards because the last card's already been, like the 3rd card has been revealed. So,
well, speaking of revealed though, Pak also has seen the entire combo line of George, at least given this circumstance not having the Nightmare Throne. So even if Pak doesn't get through this duel, that is a lot of information, which might be why, if he's in a bad spot, he's still in the duel.
Ooh. So we're going to get the search during the end phase from Bestial Magnamut. That's going to be a Juice Worm. So that provides 1 level of interaction against the opponent. I mean, you can use that to kind of trade with, well, you'll get rid of one of the materials from the DDD Wave High King Caesar. But Wave High King Caesar does have a very high stat line.
Especially when you can't really get a lot of special summon monsters when he's around, and supported by Phantom Yubel.
And battling right now, you're stuck battling Phantom Yubel because there is a copy. Ooh. So the Infinite Impermanence has now negated the Snake Eye Ash. So there's still 2 monsters on the field, so there's, you know, we don't count Pak out at this moment. If he can land that, you know, Juice Worm, get the double interaction from that particular play. If he lands it, potentially linking it off, can also trigger the effect of Juice Worm. You know, there's so much available. There's so many plays available, even though it looks like a pretty dire situation.
It's a very non-linear format. The sky is the limit. We just have to figure out which of the clouds that Pakawat is going to try to aim for. But going through his extra deck, taking a look at the field, again, he's got 2 materials, and sometimes 2 materials is all you need to get going right now.
I mean, you say it's like, you know, the clouds, I would say this is literally 2 trees that are battling it out. All the different lines, interaction, intersecting with each other. That's how I see the format. It's just 2 trees blowing in the wind against each other, and we're just trying to see which one's coming out on top.
Well, speaking of blowing in the wind, it looks like we went ahead and entered the battle phase to get rid of some life points and get over the fact that you're going to have to attack that Spirit of Yubel. But now we're going to get, this feels like a SP Little Knight.
Ooh, that's going to be met with the Abominable Chamber of the Unchained. That's going to summon back. However,
so even trying to get that set up didn't really help because, again, Abominable Chamber of the Unchained going to go ahead and get rid of that Yubel by changing the effect there.
So we're going to summon back the Unchained Soul of Rage. Now, because that was a Link monster being summoned, we're going to see Phantasme being summoned. I think there's 2 Link monsters now. That's going to be additional draws.
And this could really help Pak out of this spot if you're cheering for Pakawat.
And that's going to get negated and destroyed by DDD Wave High King Caesar.
But that's pretty much the last one. It's funny how back and forth these duels go. So much interaction on the field. And we haven't even used the effect of the Unchained Soul Lord of Rage.
And speaking of which, that's happening now. If that links off the Relinquish Anima, I don't know if you go for the Anima or you go for the Nibiru.
I feel like I would go for Anima, but hey, I'm not a World's Qualifying Points playoff. The reason being, though, is I'd still be worried about that SP Little Knight, right? They could have that ability to get the effect.
That is true.
Although at the same time, Moon in the Closed Heaven is just as scary.
Nope. No. Make their name stick.
Well, any of these duelists deserves the page in the history books, but only one of them is going to advance out of the top 16. So Pakawat begins things, going first, just like you mentioned, using the Wanted Seeker of Sinful Spoils to bring out that ever-ready Diabellstar.
Now, Diabellstar Black Witch has been added to hand, and that's going to be summoned out. We're going to be sent away the Bestial Baldrake.
And a lot of calculating going on.
Yeah, so first of all, we're summoning out the Snake Eye Ash. That's about, what, 800 life points? I thought that was like an Ash Blossom for a second. I'm like, oh, that was going to be a brutal Ash, but here we are.
It certainly gives you more turns in the duel, and that may be all a deck needs. Again, you're not necessarily doing it just so you can have higher life at the end. You could really just be doing this. You're like, okay, cool, come at me with everything you have. Now I'm going to bring back Yubel. Now we're going to get this going.
I mean, this is like about survivability. Like, sometimes when you don't need to commit cards onto the field and you know that they don't have that kind of reach with damage, especially if you've gained over, like, I don't know, 30,000 life points. Okay, passing a turn to just draw an extra card, just so that, you know your cards are once per turn, and you can just activate the additional card. It makes a huge difference to play with a 7-card hand sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit, but Pak is not going to slow down at all. He's going to keep giving life points over to George there. Again, remember, if he didn't special summon at all this turn, it actually does half the life points of the player using that card. But I don't think that's the way we're going. We're going to special summon as much as it takes.
Yeah, I don't think Pak opened with a card that would essentially just pass the turn back over. No, none of those, lockout floodgate-esque cards. I mean, if I got hit by a Spooky Dogwood, I would probably just go for that and just pass turn, just try to get the turn back, make the reach really short, just summon to go to battle phase attack for game.
I'm big on that too, whether it's Volt
that's a judgment call you're going to have to make if you have those cards. But right now we're going to IP Masquerena, and we're going to attempt to summon out Snake Eyes Diabell Star. We're going to put the Poplar back into the Spell and Trap Zone. And from there, that's like 2,800 life points added. That's
a big chunk. That's the issue. Ordinarily, if you were leaving the monsters on the field, you might get to bite back, but yeah, you're right. It's a relatively scaled down field. I still think the Divine Temple of the Snake Eye will do a lot, obviously, once we see a special summon.
Ooh, now we get the activation of Nightmare Throne, field spell for a field spell. I mean, I'm not sure if it really benefited George too much here, slowing Pak down. Maybe he wanted Pak to have a huge field so he can take control of his cards. But in this case, it did minimize the game state a little bit when it comes to what's interactive here. We have Snake Eyes Diabell Star that you don't want to attack into. And then there's also the IP Masquerena. We still have the Divine Temple that can push up, Snake Eyes, Ash, or Poplar. There are options. There's 2 set cards as well that could come into play. Now we get to the Lori.
A normal summon Lori, by the way. I haven't seen that every day.
And we're going to see the activation of IP Masquerena. That is going to be met with the Forbidden Droplet. We're going to set a monster, so there's not going to be any interaction there. On
and actually,
side.
Good looking out on George. Discarding that Yubel Terror Incarnate is the perfect resource to leave in the graveyard, because later it is just food for Phantom Yubel.
That's right. Yep. And
here we go.
Requiem in the Fiendsmith Engraver, since that's the only monster that can come out. Now, since the IP is negated, that's no longer a threat. There is no Promethean Princess in the Engraver, so fire monsters on the field are not as relevant at this moment. So we're going to equip the Engraver. Engraver is going to be... Sorry, we're going to equip the Requiem to the Engraver, and the Engraver is going to activate the effect to send away the Snake Eyes Diabell Star.
Looks like up next is going to be Fiendsmith Sequence. Again, Fiendsmith Engraver, just a really incredible card there, doing just so much work there. And awesome art, too, I got to say. It's one of those archetypes. It's one thing for a card to be good. It's a great thing for a card to be good and look cool at the same time.
I think Fiendsmith hits both notes, for sure. And we get ourselves a summon of Phantom of Yubel. I mean, that's the question of the weekend. Which deck is better? Fiendsmith Snake Eye? Fiendsmith Yubel.
I guess we'll find out tomorrow, but here is going to be a nice little preview again, as we are going to go ahead and use Fiendsmith Sequence, performing that fusion summon by returning those cards back to the deck and extra deck, and Fiendsmith Lacrima is back on the field.
Lacrima effect. We're going to likely add the card into hand because we have not used it, but then we're just going to go straight for the summon. The Caster Curse. And that's going to allow Divine Temple to activate summon out Snake Eye Ash.
Don't worry, it's hard to call them when you could go a million different directions. That's definitely going to be the vibe this tournament, because every single one of these plays could have just been different. We're living in a little Yu-Gi-Oh! Multiverse of our own.
Pak is going for the survivability play. He's going to summon as much as possible, try to wall up as much as possible, gain as many cards as possible, so he hopefully has a follow-up turn. But this is very dangerous because we've already started the Fiendsmith engine. We're linking some of the Fiendsmith stuff away now. And we have Yubel cards already live. So we're going to go into Lord Yama.
I assume Yama's just going to grab the ever-ready Unchained Soul Lord of Sharvara. There it is.
Sharvara, what a powerful card. Also a Fiend monster, also level 6. Seems like this is the year of level 6s.
It really is. And Fiends, too. I mean, I haven't heard people say, hey, but is it a Fiend this much since Dark Necrofear was a vibe way back in the day?
Is it a Fiend?
I
mean, I want to banish 3 to summon out my Necrofear.
Yeah.
But here we are. There's still 2 face-down cards on Pak's side, and I don't want to, write that off because, you know, a couple of good interactions can still make a huge difference.
But it looks like we're going straight from Fiendsmith track into Fabled Lurie. Fabled Lurie's effect activates. Going to go ahead and place it back on the field because it was discarded. So a nice little special summon there. And speaking of special summons, looks like we'll do another Link summon here. Could be a 2 or 3, but it's just going to be a 2 for the Unchained Soul Lord of Rage.
Lord of Rage is going to
Yama, Chainlink 2, Rage.
Be destroyed.
Back the Lurie. Yeah.
Adding back the Lurie.
Spirit.
And we're going to summon the Spirit of Yubel.
Well, Yubel probably going to set that Nightmare Pain down.
I mean, one of the scary things about Nightmare, like just the Yubel cards in general, is that if you need a little bit of extra damage, you just attack with the Nightmare Pain and just inflict the damage to the opponent through the battle damage reflection.
You're good.
It is going to be scary. Life points are certainly a big issue here because even if Pakawat has an incredible turn, 13,000 is hard to do all at once.
Yep.
So again, take a look at Spirit of Yubel there. Just really put this deck into a whole new light starting this February.
And now we get the DDD Wave High King Caesar that gets additional lockouts against Pak. I mean, don't forget, all the duelists here in the WQP, they're all very decorated. They are some of the best of the best, the hardest. Basically, it's like playing round 9 back to back to back to back at YCS. That's how I can kind of compare it in terms of difficulty level.
No, you're right. It feels like both being on the bubble and being the most accomplished person in the room, but the person across from you is just as good. Looks like we're going to go ahead and upgrade next there into the Yubel Terra Incarnate, but that's not staying for long. Gruesome Grave Squirmer and Yubel Terra Incarnate will make Muckraker of the Underworld.
Muckraker is going to discard if we can get ourselves a nice Fiend summon. So one thing about like Fiendsmith's sequence that I can put as a little bit of a trivia for you is that it summons out a Fiend fusion monster.
Interesting.
Not just Fiendsmith cards.
Interesting. So there's a lot of stuff out there. We may see those evil heroes come back after all.
Now, so what happened here just now is that we got the revival, a resummon of our Fiendsmith sequence. However, we discarded Lurie. Lurie was discarded, therefore comes back onto the field through its mandatory effect, and we're all caught up.
Certainly a lot going on, and that's what's so cool. Again, we've talked about it before, but this is not going to be a format where you know what's going on just based on the fact that you recognize the cards. It's continuing to evolve turn by turn, and there it is finally. It's Fiendsmith Desiree.
So that was fusion summoned through the effect of Fiendsmith Track. So sequence, you put the cards back into the deck. Track, you summon via the cards in your hand or in your field. So based on those, we use the Fiendsmith Engraver and 2 Light Fiend monsters, and we've gotten to this particular point. And you definitely want to equip, and you're going to be equipping, well, George is going to be equipping, rather, the sequence. And that makes it untargetable now.
Yeah.
And it has that quick effect to be able to target up to 2 cards.
It doesn't even target.
Oh, it doesn't. That's
it
right.
Doesn't even target.
Right.
It just negates them.
Oh, man, that is so good.
That's going to throw
right,
a lot of people off.
It's going to make a lot of difference here. So Pakawat certainly has his work cut out for him if he's going to cross through this. Right now, the Phantom Yubels are attacking, so let's get a little bit of damage on the board here.
I mean, luckily, all those monsters are in defense mode, and I don't believe they gain defense from the field. But if they're in attack position, wow, Pak would be taking a lot more damage in this.
Absolutely, but you're right. It only boosts the attack there, so luckily it was in defense, shoring up his defenses quite well. 2 copies of the Phantom Yubel there. Looks like we're going to go ahead and banish the Gruesome Grave Squirmer. Say hello.
Spirit of Yubel back onto the field. This is a very difficult field to destroy. Unless the easiest way, of course, people might just say, oh, just activate Super Poly and get rid of... What can you get rid of exactly? You can get rid of 3 cards if you use Super Poly, or 4 cards rather, because you can't use, this Phantom of Yubel as a material.
He tried to Nibiru there, Pakawat, but it looks like it is changing that effect with the Phantom of Yubel to destroy Yubel in the deck instead. So even with some of the strongest cards here, George's very well built out board is just able to stop whatever it needs and is now destroying that Yubel Terra Incarnate, likely to get off the effect of that field spell.
You know what? That's a good thing. And we're going to put it back.
Yeah.
And we're going to put it back, and I think we're just summoning another one.
Just
That's why we
one.
play 3. That's why we play 3. We just keep on putting them back onto the field. We use it, and we'll put it back onto the field.
Yep, that's true.
Now,
Really
Pak
exciting.
has his work cut out for him. For 3 minutes, you're going to need to be able to disrupt the Phantom of Yubel, for 1. Find a way through the battle phase to get rid of the Nightmare Pain. 2. 2 summon negations through DDD Wave High King Caesar. You just have to just negate everything. And then you get chained Ghost Ogre to clear it out. Okay, so that gets it destroyed, but it still gets negated, however.
True, but remember, it's not just going to be the 3 minutes, by the way. This is a single elimination tournament. So we'll have just a little bit of time. We haven't gone into turns in quite some time, but it'll be exciting if it comes up. But Pakawat still has to survive that long. With only 3,600 life points, he's practically 10,000 life points behind. This is, again, an episode of the anime, if I ever saw one.
I think if anyone's trying to pull it off, it's got to be Pak. Pak is probably playing out of his mind right now.
I mean, what other choice do you have?
We're going to generate as much as possible. Don't forget, Desiree's still on the field. There's still negation. There's still an effect changer as well. So we're going to summon the DS Bell start the Black Witch. That's going to place the original Sinful Spoil Snake Eye back on the face down. That has already been negated, so there's not going to be another copy activated at this point. But is there enough? Okay, they got Fiendsmith's tracked. Okay, that can start off the Fiendsmith engine as well. But the Fiendsmith engine, if you're going to be interacting, it's going to take some time just digging those cards out.
There was a moment I wasn't sure there was a rest of this turn, but absolutely grabbing that Lurie, using it to turn into Fiendsmith Requiem, immediately pitching that Fiendsmith Requiem into the graveyard with its own effect to grab likely the Fiendsmith Engraver, the only target we've got right now.
And that effect is going to be changed into destroying a Yubel monster. Ooh, that kind of cuts the bridge off. Now remember, you can only summon a Requiem once per turn, so that ship has basically sailed.
Exactly. You thought you were free, and yet Phantom of Yubel strikes
Normal summon Ash. Normally, this is the point where it just breaks everything. And I don't even think it's going to be that easy.
Oak effect targeting
Poplar. Oak effect?
Oak getting Poplar. Looks like we're going to use the Oak effect to go ahead and send Poplar to the graveyard itself to bring out the Snake Eyes Flamberge Dragon. But we still have the Fiendsmith Desiree there. Interesting. George thinking to himself, maybe I'll do Desiree. No, it's fine. Now we're seeing the conversion of the Snake Eye Ash going straight into the Relinquished Anima.
This is a very difficult position to be in. I mean, Pocket's playing really, really well. Like, especially through all that disruption. And through the few cards he has. He's playing Monster Reborn.
We saw Snatch Steal, now we're seeing Monster Reborn. Man.
Oh, we can re-enable the engine?
Yeah,
definitely.
Let me just borrow your Fiendsmith Engraver.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank
you got a Fiendsmith. And now we can use the send effect with this particular effect as well. Equipped with the Requiem, send away the Yubel.
I needed a Fiendsmith Engraver. I didn't say I needed my Fiendsmith Engraver.
That's right. Now the Nightmare Throne is going to activate. That's going to bump up the Fiendsmith into Terra Incarnate. Careful what you link for. There's still that Desiree, though.
There is still the Desiree. It's interesting to hold on, and I know that George is aware of it. Like, but it's not enough.